All right, so finally on to Richard Ojeda. Now, Richard Ojeda, as I've stated before, is no longer running for president. He has suspended his campaign and actually suspended his campaign quite a few months ago. Okay? However, I want to examine who Richard Ojeda is, and I want people to be able to watch and see who we could have had running for president. But the mainstream media kept him quiet. Didn't give him a platform to let the American people really hear his message. Kinda similar to what they're trying to do with Tulsi. Tulsi's gained a lot more momentum. Obviously, you can't, you know, people, since she made the debates, and I don't think they ever really expected, much less wanted her to make the debates. But she did. And now people have heard where her stance is on a lot of things. And so as a result of that, they kind of have to acknowledge her. But when they bring her on, it's always some twisted way of talking about her. The typical talking points, as I've said, Assad apologist, Putin apologist. And basically, they come up with a creative way of bashing her for using diplomacy. But we're going to talk about Richard Ojeda today. So Richard Ojeda was a state politician in West Virginia. Okay? In the 2018 midterm elections, Ojeda was running against Carol Miller for Congress at the federal level. Okay? He was wanting to become a congressman for a district in West Virginia. Now, this district that he was running in went Republican by a huge margin in 2016. They were way more for Trump than they were for Clinton. Okay? There was absolutely no disputing that at all. Trump just took Clinton to task in this district. Okay? He's running as a Democrat. Okay? And like myself, I'm not a Democrat, however. I want to make that clear. I'm not a Democrat, and I'm also not a Republican. I will stand by the fact that I am an independent. I listen to them both. I have my agreements with both. I have my disagreements with both. As of late, I have a lot more disagreements with some of these Democrats that are floating around out here. I can't get behind a complete, full, far left-wing agenda because I do think there are some serious issues with it, and I do think there is a whole lot of corporate people lining their pockets with tax cuts that the Republicans are promising, saying it's going to help middle-class people. So there's definitely some issues on both. Okay, I can find my agreements and disagreements with both sides. He was running as a Democrat, but like me, he voted for Trump because he didn't trust Clinton. He felt like Clinton wouldn't help the people of West Virginia. And he thought Trump may stand a better chance. Now, one difference is he apparently also voted for Mitt Romney over Obama. Now, to me, I wouldn't have supported either one. Obama running in 2008 sounded more hopeful than certainly Obama in 2012, but Mitt Romney was a slime ball from the get-go anyway. So, to quote Lewis Black, you basically were served two bowls of crap in that election. And a lot of people say that about 2016 also. But in my opinion, that's what you were most certainly given in 2012. Obama had already shown he wasn't going to do anything he said he was going to do. Marijuana, off the agenda. Off the agenda. We're not even talking about that. Guantanamo Bay, who cares? Who cares? Getting out of war, let's go start 5 more and start bombing some more countries around the world. So, yeah. And we're going to help the working class people. We're going to give everyone universal health care. Not single payer, not Medicare for all. No, let's go dust off Richard Nixon's old policy, which, by the way, Romney was trying to bash Obama over at that point, and Romney kind of put the same thing in place because the whole concept came from Republicans. Once again, you see why I don't fully endorse one or the other. Republicans have been railing against Obamacare, yet the whole foundation of Obamacare, which I do not like because it was screwing me over for many years, and I haven't had health care ever since I left a particular job. The job didn't pay what I needed to pay my bills to be able to live in my house right now, but it had good health care. But nonetheless, so, but the Republicans have been railing against Obamacare. It came, basically the groundwork came from them. So, you see how screwed up this is. So anyway, he voted apparently for Romney too. Without further ado, let's take a look at some of his campaign ads in an interview he did with TYT when running for Congress in the 2018 midterms.
I'm Richard Ojeda. Drug companies have made millions pouring their opioids into our communities, ripping apart our families. What has Carol Miller done? She's accepted campaign cash from the very same companies responsible. She's even profiting from this epidemic, an epidemic that has killed thousands of West Virginians. She actually owns stock in one of the companies responsible for it all, McKesson. I approve this message because Carol Miller's not going to fight this opioid epidemic, but I will. I'm Richard Ojeda. One huge drug company, McKesson, has dumped over 5 million pain pills onto a small pharmacy right here in Logan County alone. And they've made millions off of pushing their pain pills. They get away with this because they grease the pockets of the members of Congress. But make no mistake about it, I don't want their money. They need not darken my doorstep. And I will have no problems throwing drug company lobbyists out of my office. I approve this message because I'm sick and tired of watching our politicians sell us out. I'm Richard Ojeda, and people say that I'm angry. Well, angry is an understatement. When I come home and I find that I got children in my backyard that have it worse than the kids that I saw in Iraq and Afghanistan, I can't accept that. When I see companies using bankruptcy loopholes to keep from paying our coal miners the pensions that they work for, I will not sit quiet. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been sold out. We've been sold out by people like Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, and the Washington Insiders. I approve this message because I am angry and I'm ready to fight back.
How are you going to fight to get money out of politics? Because that's why we have the Carol Millers of the world that just sit up in their castles and take all the money and corruption and raise all that money and then do favors for those guys. How do you fight to get money out of politics?
Well, number one, we need to overturn Citizens United. That's number one. And number two, have the courage to point people out. I don't want someone to sit and say that they're going to fight the opioid epidemic. I don't care if they're Republican, Democrat, Independent. If they're taking money from Big Pfizer, or not Big Pfizer, but Big Pharma, then they're part of the problem. People have to understand. If it was up to me, I'd put a body camera on every single lobbyist that walks into every office. I think that the people deserve the right to see what truly goes on behind the scenes as well.
God damn, I love that. I had never thought of that. What an unbelievable idea to put a body camera on not just the cops, but on the lobbyists, okay?
And let every single person be able to tune in and check out who visits each and every one of their senators, their congressmen.
I mean, really? When was the last time you heard politicians say those sorts of things, huh? I mean, Trump kind of got out there and kind of spoke his mind and heard things you didn't hear politicians say when he was running for 2016. But this is what people want to hear. And he was going to be a people person. He would not take big corporate money. And one of the first things that he went after, Big Pharma. You heard all about it, old Big Pharma. He even called it Big Pfizer in the interview with TYT. But and this is where I had a serious issue with President Trump. Okay? Now, I get what Trump was doing. I really do. Trump went for Carol Miller and endorsed her over Ojeda. And I understand why. he knew, regardless of Ojeda, if he did not give complete unwavering support to every Republican running, then it may not bring as many people out to the polls. Every seat count. You know, every seat they could hold on to, they needed to hold on to it, because there were, for the one Richard Ojeda, you had 20 other Democrats out there who promised left and right, if we get elected, impeach, 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 delay, 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 and just hold everything up. Nothing would get done, not one thing. So for his own political interests, he understood, hey, you know, kind of how, but honestly, I don't think that's honestly what it came down to. I'm playing devil's advocate with that scenario, saying why he may have gone for Carol Miller over Ojeda. Here's where I had a problem. I feel like Trump genuinely did not want someone with Richard Ojeda's stance to get elected. He started using some pretty harsh attacks on Richard Ojeda, calling the man crazy, things like that. We're talking about a veteran here. We're talking about a veteran who's trying to fight for the people, something that you campaigned on when you were running for president, that you were going to do. You were going to be a people's president. You were not the status quo. You tried to make yourself look like you were an outsider for the people, not for Washington, President Trump. And in a lot of ways, you have been different. But in this instance, you're endorsing Carol Miller over Ojeda. So, yeah, you know, you got to really do a lot of homework, and I can't cover everything about Richard Ojeda to get you to understand why I believe he was going to be a people's elected official. But do your homework on Ojeda, man. Just like Tulsi, you know, ex-military, and spoke in a way that the people could appreciate. You just felt sincerity from the guy, especially when you heard him talk. Now, people could say, hey, he's just good at pretending. He could be full of it. Hey, maybe so. Maybe so. But he definitely seemed more genuine than, you know, Carol Miller or any of these other people, okay? So that was when he was running for the midterms of 2018. Now, he did not win that election. But remember, this district went for Trump by an overwhelming rate. And while we're not talking, I think, like 1 or 2% difference, he closed that gap by a big margin. They didn't go for the Republican nowhere nearly as much this time, or in 2018 rather, as they went for Trump in 2016. So he closed that margin by a nice chunk. Okay? After things didn't work out, he then declared he was running for president. And he was, if I'm not mistaken, the second person to declare behind Andrew Yang. He was the second one in the race. Now let's take a look at the video he released to announce that he was running for president.
Okay, everybody out there, I appreciate you guys hopping on here to join me for this special announcement. I'm Richard Ojeda, and 19 months ago, I chose to run for Congress. I chose to run for Congress because I wanted to help the people in southern West Virginia. In the last 19 months, while running for office in southern West Virginia, we received countless phone calls, emails, and messages from people all across the United States of America that educated me that the problems that we have in southern West Virginia are the same problems that we have in the south side of Chicago, in Flint, Michigan, in the Bronx, New York, the Rio Grande Valley, and believe it or not, even places like Silicon Valley. We have not had people that have really fought for the working class citizens in this country. The President of the United States, Republicans and Democrats, have focused more on infighting, political wars than they have focused on being there for the working class citizens. It's time for people to put up. If you say you want to serve, you need to serve. You need to live just like every other citizen out there. When you cast votes about the banking industry, about the housing industry, about the public schools, about healthcare, you need to be directly involved. So ladies and gentlemen, that's pillar one. There's a lot more that's going to come out later on, but I wanted to let everybody know what my first pillar is all about. We got a long ways to go. This is going to be a long fight, but we're going to do this together because I'm Richard Ojeda and I'm running for the President of the United States of America. Thank you.
Okay, so I was unable to find the entire clip that I saw when he first announced. Go figure. Can't find the clip. Probably got deleted. But either way, the initial video that I saw, he talked about his pillar one, but from this video, they kind of removed everything that was in his, top priority. He went on to basically, now obviously in the TYT interview, you heard him say putting body cameras on lobbyists. Oh God, I love that idea. I love that idea. But of course, if you properly dismantle corruption and big money influence in politics, you probably won't have as many lobbyists. Nonetheless, what you didn't get to hear in that interview, or not interview, I guess, but his video announcing that he was running, is he wants to put things in place, obviously the term limits for Congress and the Senate. He thinks there should be term limits, okay? He also believes that, as far as health care is concerned, that they don't, as he put it, no more Cadillac deals. So, in other words, if you're a member of the United States federal government, you have to take the same health care that the average citizen gets, and if you are a veteran that gets elected, then you have to use the VA just like every other veteran. But as far as regular old health care, though, is concerned, you get the same thing I get. That way, you got some skin in the game. As you did hear him say in that video, you're directly affected. Something else that he said, we need to put a cap on how much money that you can earn by becoming an elected official. Because, see, let's just take, for example, what Nancy Pelosi's net worth is for a moment, shall we? So first off, let's just look at how much the salary would be for the Speaker of the House of Representatives for a moment. Okay? I'm not sure how good this will come up because when I know in the video editing this all looks pretty blurry here. But you can look this up for yourself. Speaker of the House of Representatives earns a salary of $223,500. Okay? That should be their annual salary. Okay? Now, Nancy Pelosi's net worth is $26.4 million. Okay? So, by that statistic right there, let's just do some old math here for a moment. 2, 6, 4, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. There we go. 26,400,000 divided by 223,500 or $223,500 equals 118.2. We'll forget about the rest of all that afterwards. So, for those of you who are, I'm sure most of you have figured out what I've just done here. I've broken down, taking the amount of income that she is supposed to get every single year, how many years it would take for her to get $26.4 million. It would take, without spending one dime of that money, 118.12 years. And let's keep in mind, that is being based off the Speaker of the House salary, a regular House of Representatives, elected official salary, and like 173 or something like that, from what I just saw a second ago. She hasn't had the Speaker of the House salary the whole time she's been an elected official. Now, to be fair, apparently her husband has some investments out there in like the United Football League and this and that. So perhaps a nice little chunk could have come from him, but let's be honest. Does anybody really believe that as long as Nancy Pelosi has been in office, she hasn't been taking in loads and loads and loads of money from other people? So this was Richard Ojeda's cap, basically. And what he said is once you're elected, you can only earn so much money year to year. Anything you earn beyond that cap, you got to donate to charity. And it has to be something that is shown to actually be doing some good. Not go start your own charity like the Clintons, and then the money funnels right back to you or to your kids later on or this or that. You have to show that it is a charity actually doing work within the communities and doing good, and it cannot have any ties back to yourself or to your family, basically. And then once you leave office, you are allowed an income of so much money, right? But it's going to be enough that you could live, but not enough that you're going to be splurging, really. Okay? So, with that being said, he's trying to make them have to live more honestly. And he made a very good point. If you are trying to become an elected official, the definition basically of an elected official is that you are a servant of the people. Because the people voted for you, and that's how you ended up with that job. And so you're there to do our bidding, not your bidding. We didn't elect you to go in there and pad your own pockets. We elected you to go there and do what needed to be done for us. And the best way to understand what common people might be dealing with is if you're having to live a bit more commonly yourself. In other words, if you're taking all the incentive for the rich to get richer by getting into politics, rich people probably won't run for that much politics. That's the problem. A bunch of rich people, for the most part, who get traction. So he said, hey, you want to run? Live like an ordinary American. Now, of course, getting a policy like that through those people, because remember, it'd have to be Congress who votes for this crap. We can't even get the term limits. We can't even get the term limits done. What makes anybody think that the freaking corrupt politicians on Capitol Hill would vote themselves into that corner? I mean, hey, but that does not take away from the fact that I 100% agreed with his message that it needed to be done. And the best way to get them to have to understand what we're going through, live like old Joe, ordinary blue-collar people. Now, $200,000 or so still a lot more than an old blue-collar guy like me brings home. So you're not exactly having to live in, you know, a small town to get, but still, you're not going to be a millionaire either. And let's remember what a Democrat president by the name of Harry Truman said about the issue. That you can either be honest in politics or make money, but you can't do both. Okay? So with that being said, this is what Richard Ojeda wanted to run on. He couldn't quite get the West Virginia congressional seat. So he wanted to bring his message to the American people and try to reach out to them. Now, he has announced he's the second one to announce. And all the way back to last year, even when the midterms were going on, every news network was jumping the gun a little bit then, talking about 2020, 2020, 2020. Who's running against Trump? Well, midterms ended, and then, bam, full force. As if overnight, we just finished one election, now we're going to talk about the next one. Now we're on to 2020. The only other person other than him who had announced was Andrew Yang. And the news networks, who's going to be President Trump's opponent in 2020? Who's going to run in 2020? And who did we hear about? Is Clinton going to run again? Well, she said she didn't, but she might. She's hinting about it. Clinton. Biden. Bernie. Warren. You heard those names floated a lot. Then you started getting a lot of Cory Booker. Kamala. They were getting floated. Then Jill Brand started getting kind of tossed around a little bit. Okay. And for the longest, Biden wouldn't even announce that he was running for president. But that's who you heard all about. Joe. And the man wouldn't even announce he was running for president. Meanwhile, you have somebody running for president, and you won't even mention his name, hardly. I think he did a couple of interviews on MSNBC. I don't know if he ever made it to CNN or not. I know I never heard him mention him on Fox. I'm sure he may have gotten a mention at some point. But at a previous job where they had Fox News on almost 24/7, I never heard him talk about him. But I heard plenty about Joe Biden. And Joe wasn't even running at the time. So now, let's take a look at what happened when he figured out he wasn't getting any momentum, any traction, and the whole thing was just going to go downhill, and they were not going to give him any exposure to have a decent chance at any sort of a successful presidential candidacy. Let's see what he had to say then.
Hey everybody, you know, when I was a kid in grade school, my teachers always said that anyone can grow up and become president. And unfortunately, what I'm starting to realize is that unless you have wealth, influence, and power, it's not going to happen. Unfortunately, we've made the decision that we're going to end this presidential campaign because I can't see continuing to ask people to donate when I can't get no FaceTime. I don't want to see people, send money to a campaign that's probably not going to get off the ground. So I just want each and every one of you all to know that my fight is not over. I'm going to continue being a voice, and I'm not done. I'm not done. I may not be able to continue on in this presidential race, but I can assure you that the only thing I've ever wanted to do was to try to help people. I think that whoever does win the presidency needs to be somebody who is willing to check Big Pharma, who understands that we have got to find the jobs of the future, who understands how important it is to look out for the working class citizens and support our unions so that all working class citizens can have a voice at the table, and that's important. So thank you very much for your support. Sappers clear the way, airborne all the way.
So there you have it. To me, anyone who wants to say he was just mouthing on and on about being a people's person, to me, that right there is your proof that he is not just all talk about what he really wants to do. To me, that's the proof. To me, anyway. To me. He could have just tried to keep on fighting, tried to, just go on, keep collecting everyone's money. He could have tried to be that guy. Tried to, I guess, take money out of people's pockets, keep funding it anyway, and wouldn't have had to spend nothing because, they weren't giving him much TV time, this and that. But the fact that he realized that they were rigging it against him and that the weren't going to even hardly mention his name. They'll talk about people who weren't running, but they won't talk about a guy who is running. Yet they're going to talk about who's running and who could run. We're on the subject of running, but we won't talk about the people running because we won't talk about the people who we either hope will run or might run. So, to me, that shows the honesty. He knew what was going to happen. He knew he wasn't going to take big corporate money. And I'll bet you if he had, they'd have been talking about it. They'd have been talking about it. But because he didn't have the name recognition that Bernie got from 2016, and because he wasn't going to take big corporate money, they would not give him any exposure whatsoever. Just like the third party candidate in the presidential debates doesn't get a voice, that's basically the treatment they gave him. We're not going to let you on our program because we don't want your message on our channel because you might inform someone a bit too much. We don't like people to be properly informed. We want them to be informed with the propaganda we spew on our news network. That's what they want. They don't want people like him being on there. See, to me, that shows you something right there. When Fox and Tucker Carlson will at least bring Tulsi on, but he never would bring on Richard Ojeda. He wouldn't bring on Richard Ojeda. And maybe it's because of the timing. I mean, he didn't used to bring Tulsi on way back then either. So maybe if Ojeda had have stayed in the race, he could have gotten more exposure through possibly Tucker Carlson or anybody else. But nonetheless, he didn't think he had that much of a chance because of what they were doing to him at that time. And so because of that, he decided to pull himself out of the race and not take anybody else's money because, as he put it, I feel like you possibly may just be wasting your money, and I'm not going to ask the hardworking, blue-collar people who I claim to support to give me their money if it's all going to be in vain because they need that money for their households, their families, put food in their kids' mouths, clothes on their back. Respect to you, sir. Much respect to you because ordinary politician would not have done that. And that's what makes him stand out from the rest of the crowd. So I really wish Ojeda hadn't have dropped out. I understand why he did. I wish he hadn't. I wish he had have been able to fight into these debates and get his message out there. That doesn't mean they wouldn't be still trying to stack the deck against him. They're stacking the deck against Tulsi. You better believe they'd be stacking the deck right on against him too. It's their MO, and they don't want someone with his message or Tulsi's message to be on that stage. And the corporate Democrats would have been trying to run him out of office. I'm not sure what they would have used to try to keep him and kick him off that stage and keep him out of office. I'm not sure what tactic they would have used on him, but I'm sure they would have found something. Whoa. How could I be so foolish? I know exactly what they would have used against him. You voted for Trump. You voted for Romney. He voted for who he felt was the best for his community. But because it wasn't along party lines, that's what they would have done to try to bury him. Just like they're using Assad on Tulsi And just like how they're trying to use Putin on Tulsi now, they would have tried to use the fact that he's voted for a Republican and didn't adhere to the party standard that you can't vote for who you think is the best choice. You just have to vote for the party nominee. They would have tried to just take that and bludgeon him with it. Flat out. So, unfortunately, this was a man who I would have loved to saw on the stage against Trump. And he's no longer in the race now. Disappointment. Disappointment. Because as much as I want Tulsi to be the nominee at this point, I would have been thrilled to see Richard Ojeda as the Democrat nominee. Now that he's gone, I'm giving the support to Tulsi to become the nominee. But I would one day still like to see Richard Ojeda run for president and actually get a decent run. And but it won't happen until we have some serious reform in this country. Until we have some serious reform in this country and we have reformed the media where they're actually going to talk about, the serious issues, until the people have projected their voice and we run this swamp, the media and everything, and we rein it all in and take them out. And let me tell you something, folks, that sounds a lot more easy than it would actually be. That sounds a lot more easy than it would actually be. You're not going to get over on them that easy. You will have one hell of a fight on your hands. And it would be a fight that I don't know that many people would be able to stick out. If anybody would really want that kind of fight, it would not be easy at all. But that's what's going to happen if you ever get a chance of getting somebody like that, to have a halfway decent presidential run. You'll have to have something like that take place. If you don't, just like he said about his run then, it'll just be one big waste of time. They will look for every way possible to try to bury it, shut it down, so no one knows about it, no one hears about it, and the only thing we'll keep talking about on the news is who we want to run, who might run, and scandal after scandal, Russia, 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 Trump and this porn star, Trump and this Playboy cover girl, just drama, BS after BS, and that's all you'll ever hear.